Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Some of you may have seen us in San Antonio last week. Some of you may have heard some crazy things that prompted you to join us today. And we're so glad that you did. Today is going to be full of some excellent takeaways, but I'd like to give you a brief overview of what to expect. I know that some of you are familiar with Pathify, and some of you may be brand new here. Again, welcome. You're like, what the heck is this Pathify thing, and how is it different from other things that I've heard that are out there? I'm going to take some time to go over all of that today. The problem, who we are here, the problem that we solve, and why institutions like Angelo State University, Columbia College, and Xavier University of Louisiana choose Pathify. After that, we are going to be moving to the most exciting portion of our presentation, the conversation with our remarkable panelists and partners. They're going to be talking about their raw, unfiltered experiences and journey that they took to get to where they are today as it relates to their student digital experience and the role that Pathify played in that. At the conclusion of today's webinar, we will be doing a Q&A. So I encourage you to get those fingers warmed up, do your finger exercises, and ask any questions that you have in the chat. We have several folks here from Pathify that are monitoring the chat and ready to get all of your questions answered, whether that's through the chat or whether that's escalating it so that we can get it on the Q&A stage. We got you. So don't be shy. Ask away. We are ready for you there. All right. So what do we actually do here at Pathify? Well, we try to solve this picture right here for institutions and colleges. We have found that most institutions have an ever-expanding universe of stuff like this that students have to hunt and pack their way through. And while this may have worked 20 years ago, perhaps, traditional student portals tend to take students on a treasure hunt for information rather than helping them navigate this universe more easily. The issues that result from this are twofold, right? While students hunt and pack their way through links, systems, resources, well, when they eventually get frustrated and confused enough, what do? Well, they contact the help desk for support. Golly, tickets like crazy. They ask their friends for help. That doesn't always work depending on who you ask. And too many of them simply give up, right? The other result of this is that many institutions and departments have inefficient responsibilities and duplicated effort in order to manage the expanding universe of systems, resources, software. And I'm sure that this is a problem that you've heard before because it is a very real one, as are the rest of the things that you would imagine that happen here. And unchecked, it is headed in the wrong direction. And without the ability to consolidate these systems and bring them together, it will get worse, unfortunately. But hey, the short answer is that we are the unifying layer that brings your entire tech stack into one. It brings it back together again. I know it's kind of a trendy phrase that often gets misused, but we function as the single pane of glass that brings your entire digital universe into a single individualized experience. We meet each user where they're at, surfacing the appropriate information and the appropriate resources for where they are in their journey. So whether that's a freshman, a transfer student, a political science student that's getting ready to graduate, or even faculty and staff, it serves as a campus portal as well. And we do this with the best practice user interfaces and experiences that students, and honestly, faculty and staff for that matter, are used to. And quite frankly, they expect here in 2024 with the modern day and age of what we have on our devices regularly, right? People want a modern UX and UI. They expect a modern UX and UI. Full parity with web and mobile creates much needed simplicity for our users. Don't be afraid of the rainbow. We just think that's a fun one. Branding is depending on what you would like for your institution, as you'll see later on. So now that you've got some quick context, let's switch gears into the subject of this webinar, why institutions choose Pathify. I'm going to run through 8 fundamental reasons put together based on conversations with the market and with our customers. Many of these themes, if not all, you'll hear about today in our panel. So number one is our mission. While other portals focus on connecting students with information specifically housed within an SIS, for example, Pathify exists to connect your entire digital universe, including both information and people, in order to make the student experience as connected and seamless as possible. These are the kinds of things that students are looking for as they decide which institution they'd like to enroll in. Number two, independence. Unlike portals connected to the SIS or our front ends for specific company solutions, right? Pathify is an agnostic front end that allows you to add or replace any tool without having to worry about the impact on your portal and your mobile app experience. So we are vendor agnostic. We want to equip you to build the tech stack of your dreams without feeling shackled or handcuffed to anything in particular in order to not sacrifice that front end experience, okay? Integrations. Other portals, they allow you to build integrations, and Pathify does too, but we are also proactively integrating with more and more of your most popular systems every single sprint, meaning more out-of-the-box integrations and less work for you. I know it sounds too good to be true, but ask our customers. They will certainly give you some raw, unfiltered feedback on that. Number four, features. On the surface, other portals offer a lot of features, right? And some of them overlap. But once you dig in, you will see how Pathify separates itself, whether it's granular role-based permissions across all kinds of content, or functionality to connect students and build community, or even digitizing your student ID. We offer the deepest portal functionality that exists in higher ed today. Design. Short and simple, the UI and the UX of the university systems gives a big impression of how much an institution cares about the student experience. One of the easiest and most cost-effective ways to show your institution does care and hold high regard for the student experience is through polished and modern design. With less high school graduates enrolling in college, competition for students continues to heat up. As an example, Pathify's Prospects module offers institutions a low-cost way to separate themselves from the crowd and connect prospects with their experience, their culture, the student body, increasing the probability of students selecting your institution over another option. Customer experience and customer success. While it's almost a cliche at this point, we find that many customers truly are looking for a partner rather than a vendor, right? Pathify is full of people that value excellence in their work. And we have countless stories of how we've worked with customers to implement quickly, develop a new integration, or solve a problem that they hadn't expected. Many of the decision makers across our customer base have commented that our partnership focus was a key factor in their decision to choose Pathify. Hey, save money. The majority of institutions in the US higher ed market today have tight budgets. We know that. We understand that. We're hearing more and more that many institutions can actually save money by using our platform through consolidation of other redundant tools. Not only that, but the simplicity of our platform frees up IT manpower. Many institutions are running homegrown or self-managed portals or difficult portals, if you will, which require IT involvement to update content, right? In order to update a word on a web page, submit an IT ticket. No. At the same time, many have either built or manage a completely separate mobile app designed to do the exact same thing, but on a cellular device. All of this results in duplicated effort and overhead, which Pathify eliminates by offering a single SaaS web and mobile platform that any employee, even the non-technical ones, I'm a non-technical one, that has the skills to create content on. So just imagine all of the things that your team can accomplish with the freed up capacity, right? And finally, as a company, we are here to challenge the status quo. And we're here to inspire customers and empower them to stand out and create truly outstanding experiences and defy the previous standard of a link farm portal or a link mill, if you will. I think somebody mentioned that the other day. Our co-founders of Pathify, Chase and Jimmy are their names. They're awesome. I hope you get the opportunity to meet them one day. They started the company with this in mind, and it continues to be true today. Pathify is the best portal product and the most widely used and implemented standalone portal product in higher ed. All right, are we all slides out? That's enough slides, everyone. Let's get to the true stars of today's webinar. I know this is the most exciting portion. You're like, please, ma'am, Louie from Pathify, no more slides. This is what we're looking forward to, is hearing from our absolutely remarkable customers and partners. So I'd love to bring them up on stage here with me so that we can get you introduced to them. Awesome. Beautiful. Hey, Susan, welcome. So happy to have you here. Let's start with you, Susan. I see you on first, and then we'll kind of go through and get started.
My name is Susan Odine. I am a project manager with Columbia College of Missouri. I was a project manager on the implementation of Pathify. And a little bit about our students. We do have a traditional campus, but most of our students are non-traditional students.
Awesome. Awesome. So glad to have you here. Brian, welcome. Thanks for being here. Would you care to introduce yourself?
Hey, how you doing, everyone? I'm Brian Bowers from New Orleans, Louisiana, working at Xavier University. It's been about 18 years now. Was kind of the lead on the portal project. You'll learn a little bit more about that as we speak. But it's been a great process, and happy to be here. Grateful to Pathify for inviting me.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, Patrick, welcome. Would you care to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to this. Patrick Diersky. I'm the coordinator of Learning and Communication Services at Angelo State University. We're in San Angelo, Texas. It's kind of right in the middle of Texas. Just a great school. D2. Actually, we're the reigning Division II baseball national champions. And so I work on the kind of the people side of the IT area, work with the functional areas, and been working on the project team as we are implementing Pathify for our new portal, and we're planning to go live here next month. So yeah.
So exciting. Awesome. All righty, let's stop the share so we can see our lovely, lovely faces here. And again, as a reminder to everyone in the chat, please don't be shy. If you have questions, we will do everything in our power to get to that at the end. But let's start at the beginning. What did Pathify, or what did life look like that was pre-Pathify at your institution? So I would love to know, what were you using as a student portal before? How did you know it was time to look for something new? And let's start with you on this one.
We were using, just to answer the question initially, we were using a Louisiana portal based on top of SharePoint. And it was basically just a static portal. It provided us a way to display information. We did have a few documents in there from most departments. Departments were able to create, smaller groups and be able to do smaller things inside of there. But that's where we were. There was no real mobile application. We did have a mobile application that kind of showed it in app, kind of like a web browser. So we were kind of cheating it that way. So at the time we were using two different mobile apps, because we also, like you mentioned earlier, we had a mobile application for our mobile applications, but it wasn't the portal. So we did have that. And then also the old portal didn't provide us any way of two-way interaction. There was no interactiveness at all between the students, faculty, staff, or anything like that. So yeah, that's kind of where we were before we kind of got the nod and kind of started looking around.
Awesome. Awesome. Patrick, how about you? What were you using as a student portal, and how did you know it was time to look for something new?
Yeah, so we, again, a Lucian school, banner school, and we've been using Luminous as our portal for almost 20 years. And, it served its purpose. We had campus surveys and, with students, faculty, and staff. We didn't know what we needed or what was out there, actually. So it was mainly a link farm with some role-based content. And our driver, our main driver, the only reason we started looking for another solution was the announcement that Luminous was approaching end of life. So that pretty much triggered us to start looking around. And also, I tell you, our first contact with Pathify was Bayless Parsley, just cold calling. He saw the Aleutian end of life announcement, started calling Aleutian schools and said, "Hey, do you know what's coming?" So he was almost like the, Paul Revere going across the countryside. So yeah.
I am going to tell him that he is. That's amazing. Susan, how about you?
We were using an Aleutian product, the SharePoint portal, and it was outdated. It just was not serving students well. It was monochromatic, and we did do things to it over the years, but it just really needed an update.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the modern student. How has the shift in student expectations, how does that fit into your initiatives to find a new portal during that time? Susan, let's start with you.
Sure. So what we found that students wanted was to get the information they needed that was important to them, but also to be able to search and find things quickly. And Pathify provided that for us. How did we know, the importance of the student feedback, I should say? It's really tough because we have both the traditional students and non-traditional students, and they often want different things. But we knew with the feedback that they wanted to be able to find things quickly, and that has been the strength of our portal, in that search bar is always there. And some functionality that we had before with our other portal was to impersonate, and we found that even though Pathify does have that, it really wasn't needed so much because they could direct people to use the search functionality for things they were looking for. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. We live in a search day and age, right? We don't even type google.com. We just say how to find food near me, right? It's the way it works. Patrick, how about you? So the modern student, their needs, wants, motivations, and importance of student feedback. How does that impact your institution and your search?
Yeah, I'll say just, piggyback on what Susan said, the same thing of just trying to meet the need, meet them where they are, kind of understand where it's traditional or non-traditional. We have expanded our dual credit for high school students. So that makes up a large chunk of our enrollment right now, and we're growing our online program as well. So knowing to maintain that relationship, that connectedness, and by using some tools, online tools that can deliver that. Like I said, we started the journey. I remember we were doing the RFP process, and the vendors were coming in, and the first presentation, someone stepped back and said, "Wow, we are behind the curve on what's out there, on what we can be providing our students, and to help them maintain that connectedness, and then for our faculty and staff, provide them the tools to be there for them." And just as we've had to adjust our on-campus technology, right, our broadband, our internet pipe, with the Wi-Fi, students are bringing in the gaming systems, all our security cameras, that type of thing. There was a need to kind of upgrade our online presence for an internal audience. So that was some of the things that we were looking for in this, and we know. And so now the nervousness is like, are we already behind? Because now we're jumping into this. So it's like as soon as you choose something. But what we've seen with Pathify is from that first phone call to now, and all the way process how Pathify is positioning to be there for each institution and be able to grow with them. So that's what we're excited about. Like I said, we haven't, we're almost go live. So fingers crossed, but it's looking good. Yep.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see how your launch goes. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try to jump one more time. It's really a student perspective. That's something that we try to do is to pull in those, but we do focus faculty and staff because they're here our students are here 4 years, hopefully, 4 or 5 years, and then they move on. But those faculty and staff are here much longer, and so we want to make sure they're involved as well. So yeah.
Excellent point, right? Retention in faculty and staff and the people that make the institution run is critical. So that's a great call out there. Brian, last but not least, how about you?
Pretty much, it's a lot of what everyone else is saying. I'm sure it's across higher ed in general. You have a need to meet the students where they are. And right now they're online and they're on their mobile devices. So you need to be able to fish out information, and they need to be able to find information wherever they are, whatever it is that they're looking for. And the Pathify portal does exactly that. It connects, like you said, you're banging a point home, and I think people can get it. It connects all of your systems in one place, and allows the students and faculty and staff to access those systems and get to those systems without being at a computer, anytime they want, anytime they're ready. And the feedback when we were initially getting started was kind of important to us. We knew initially when we saw the Pathify portal that it was going to be, as Patrick noted, a huge step as far as leaps and bounds of what we had. But you always still want to get that feedback. So in our start of the process, we did bring in 3 different groups of students. We had regular student workers, we had SGA students, and just students that we kind of randomly pulled in just to kind of take a look at it. It wasn't a whole lot. We're not a huge campus or a huge university, but it was enough for us to get a grasp on that the students will definitely like this. They'll take to this. It'll be at home for them compared to the portal and the interface that they were used to seeing in our old system. So yeah, it was important to get their feedback, but also helped out to let us know that we were going in the right direction.
Awesome. Yeah, I love to hear that. And student feedback is so interesting. I always love, that's one of my favorite questions to ask is like, what have the students been saying, after launch? And I heard a story from one of our panelists on another webinar we did where he said, I work in IT. Never in my life have I ever had a student stop by my desk and tell me that we're doing an amazing job until we implemented Pathify. It's awesome. I love it. So let's talk about IT. Replacing a portal is a huge lift, right, on the IT team. So how did you prioritize the replacement among other competing tech initiatives? I know there are tons of folks that are replacing their SIS or things like that. How'd you prioritize this? Patrick, let's start with you.
Yeah, so the prioritization was kind of given to us because we knew we had an end of life. We knew we had a definite deadline. We have the Lumina servers on-prem here, and so we could say last resort we could stand it up ourselves, but that's not our philosophy. It's not supported with upgrades and security risks and so forth. So that was we definitely in June of 2024 is what we're going to do. So we do have a project office here that's able to do prioritizations and communicate with leadership to ensure, we have the funnel and everything to make sure resources are allocated. So that was challenging to maybe, have to move some projects over just a little bit because of that time, the scope of what we're doing. And we also are upgrading. We're going from Banner 8 to Banner 9. We're moving, Blackboard that's our LMS, so that's upgrading to a new look and feel. So there's a lot of change coming here in the next couple months for our campus. So just making sure the executive leadership, we communicate with them frequently to let them know and they're on board, so then they could do that trickle down to their areas. We try as much as possible to say this is not an IT project per se. This is really community. This is about our communication. Our president has been high up on a unified communication. So, one place to get all that. So I think this solves that. Our RFP committee was about 25 people from across campus. We brought in communications and marketing. They're working with us at this initial implementation team. We're going around doing campus road tours right now, showcasing it, showing people what's out there, what they'll be seeing. And yeah, the search feature by far is what gets the wow factor and the yay and that sort of thing, the shortcuts to be able to, personalize things like that. So I will say our philosophy at this point is to say, phase one, at a minimum, you will have this access to the same content and and other platforms that you do now in the Luminous environment. And Ramport will stay the same. It'll be ramport.angelo.edu. Things might have moved a little bit. So what we've been saying is like we're building a new house. The old house is scheduled for demolition. Like the bulldozer's right up. So we need to, at least we got to take everything out of the house. So we might have to box things up, put them in a little different areas so we make sure it's all there. And then we'll, phase 2 will be more of the organization, the efficiencies, using the analytics that's in Pathify that we didn't have in Luminous to be able to ensure that these things are accessible and are used the best that we can. And then we're doing the core. We're also saying this is a minimum. So we're doing the core implementation of Pathify and phasing in other features and that sort of thing. So we're having I'll talk about a little bit about that later, but managing expectations is also what we're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great feedback with that. Scheduled for demolition. Yeah, got a plan for it and all of that, but you've got a team that is helping with that, which is good. Brian, how about you? Talk about prioritization. How were you able to kind of find this within your teams across the institution in order to make this happen?
Well, I'll tell you this. It worked a little differently at our situation. We had some end of life contracts coming up, but we had a couple of projects running at the same time. Not only were we redoing our portal, we were also doing our website at the same time. So we had a lot going on, but we had to, because of a time crunch. We had to get the project kind of completed by a certain amount of time, just because of things that were going on, and we also had to get off of the Lucian SharePoint portal. So we didn't have a whole lot of time to plan it out and do the long process, which is what you're supposed to do. You get with all the as many times as you can. You plan things out. You get there. We kind of, as Patrick has mentioned, what they made, they're up against a time crunch. Ours was a little different time crunch, but it was a crunch also. We had to get things done and moved. So one of our first priorities, as he mentioned, our main priority was just making sure that everything that was there is in the new. We did have the ability to have some time where we were both of them running at the same time with a preview also. So that helped us out as far as getting people transferred over. They were able to see visually on the screen where things were compared to where they were in the new and the old. We did bring on some of our administrative faculty and staff to kind of take a look at things just to make sure they could find things. But as mentioned ahead of time before also, that search bar, once people type a word, if you go to type 1 or 2 letters and it shows you what you're usually looking for, that's a big help as far as finding things. People don't have to dig. As soon as it pops up, you type in HO and you're going to get what you're looking for. Housing is going to pop up. So it helps out a lot as far as getting people to find what they're looking for, even if it is not located exactly where it may have been before in the old system. So we didn't have a big problem getting it pushed through and getting it on board and getting everybody on board for us to kind of get this going once folks saw what it was and what it could be. So we were blessed in that it wasn't a big issue for us in the beginning.
Awesome. And Susan, how about you?
So prioritizing it, we knew it had to be done. So we had to make room for it. But what made Pathify a better product for us is that most of the build items did not require our programmers to be involved. So our analysts could do many of the build, the quick links and the pages and all of that. So that made it freed up their resources and didn't make a drain on our programmers so much. We did involve departments quite heavily in the process to get their feedback and to get this, also to try to get the student perspective. And then we leveraged that process of committees and subcommittees to, after we implemented that, we brought together a steering committee and maintained that representation. So as new things are released, we talk about it as a group, and there's a little bit of governance happening over the portal and those decisions that have to be made. It's not solely on the technology services office to make a decision. It's a group decision. So that was one of the things that we were struggling with before, is that tech services maintained it, but really they weren't the decider, but they kind of ended up being just by default because they maintained it. So having that steering committee has been very helpful in continuing the conversations as we grow and new features are released.
Awesome. Susan, I'll start with you for this next question, since we have you unmuted.
Mhm.
How important was the vendor partnership relationship piece to all of this? Was that a driving force or no?
Um, it helped me very much as the project manager. It made my life much better because I knew I had a resource there. If we got stuck on something, I could ask a question and they were very responsive. Also, not only was I keeping track of things, but they were as well. So it was just a nice second check for me to follow up on things. If I happened to miss something, they would always poke me and say, "Hey, how's this going?" But the primary thing was the support when we got stuck on something and we needed more information, or maybe we didn't quite understand how to build something. Um, Having that feedback right away was really important, helped us move forward.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And Patrick, your background changed. I'm obsessed. Talk about partnership.
Well, sorry, I didn't know it would appear right. Susan was talking, so I'm sorry to do that. But I was just wanting to show because yeah, that really showed me. This was kind of the theme at Educate. You had the beach theme at Pathify and stuff, but the partnerships with any vendor is critical, especially this type of tool, this type of really that changes ASU, the culture, and all that forever. And I don't think we would not be where we are today, positioned, ready to go live. And there was just this cohesive partnership. And it started, like I said, from sales to training, tech support, the marketing, account management. While we're in the discovery phase, I was attending the webinars and the virtual summits that Gia put on, and just seeing the enthusiasm from everybody within Pathify was like, boy, they seem pretty happy to be where they are and to meet them in person. And then actually having some I was able to meet Chase at Educause, and then we've had some one-on-one conversations. So they are really involved with to see what the customer needs and how to respond to that. And then, as we move forward with the RFP, Pathify really stood out from the comprehensive packet, the materials, the timelines, everything, the expectations. There really wasn't any stone unturned. And so we really knew what we're getting in with Pathify. And those promises to this point have been delivered. We can go back and say, okay, well, there might be some things, that we still need to work on because, Ken, we're phase one. We're doing the minimum right now so we can get it stood up. But we're excited to move forward with that. And, just having like these type of opportunities, I would say the Collegium platform with the support, which is great, not only from building a community, but you're actually using the Pathify platform to do that. So we always talk about eating your own dog food, right? It's like you're using something else, but you could be using your platform. So seeing that, just there's some genuineness to it. There's some intentional when y'all are moving through your feature set and so forth, and how we've seen the response from customer requests to how they get vetted and then how they get in the review process developed and then placed on the release schedule, those type of things. So, just really a few companies that I've had the experience at this point that have really continued to nurture that relationship. Now, again, we're still kind of in the honeymoon phase, so we'll see. We're still there, so I'm not, all rainbows and unicorns, but I will say I've really enjoyed working with everybody I've come into contact at Pathify.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And just a little thank you for plugging Collegium real quick for anyone that's joining. What that is it's essentially a Pathify instance that is designed for our customers and our partners to connect with one another, share best practices, and use the platform in order to crowdsource incredible ideas. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So that's what that is. It's a cool club. You want to be in that club. Believe it. Brian, how about you? Relationship, what's that look like for you and Pathify and all that?
Well, from the beginning, it was a very important piece to what we were trying to do. Honestly speaking, I had no clue what the Pathify product was. We actually had just signed up to get some customization help for our SharePoint um, portal when I first heard about Pathify. I was reached out by one of your sales folks, Ramel, and she stayed in contact for about a year and a half, 2 years. Every other month or so, we would talk just to kind of discuss some things that we were doing because I had mentioned that we were kind of trying to do some things with our current portal and trying to get as much out of it as possible. And after taking a few looks and communicating a few times, the relationship, I could tell it was genuine. I could see the things that she was saying. She was showing me demonstrations. Once I was able to get some of my admins, our assistant VP and our VP involved, and show them a demo and let them meet the folks over at Pathify. From there, we knew it was the right choice. It was very important because we felt like, okay, they're here to help. They're gonna assist us through this. We're not a very huge staff. The entire IT department itself, I'm sure, and that's across most universities in higher ed, especially right now. So we didn't have a whole ton of staff to assign different things, and so we needed to be able to move and with a lot of help and get things done at a nice pace, also. So it was really important for us that Pathify was there to help every step of the way. The plan was very laid out, was very detailed. It was very specific in order for us to reach that goal of success. So it helped us out a lot, and it was a good process for us. Definitely no complaints about how it was coming into the port. And like I said, we were even dealing with a rush situation where we kind of were on a time crunch, and it still moved very smoothly, and as smooth as you possibly can expect something like this to work when you're training and changing big systems. But yeah.
Awesome. And I just saw a question come through on chat. So for anyone else that's out there listening, you're thinking through questions, go ahead and add those in. We will get to those here soon. So just making sure that that's a resource for all of our attendees here, and we'll get to that question here shortly. So you've decided that Pathify is the right fit to replace your old portal, right? Let's talk about the implementation process. And who better to start with this question than Patrick, who is in the implementation process? Do you have blood, sweat, tears? What's going on?
Yeah, like I said, from the beginning, you're just kind of looking through some things. It's like, really, it's like a 10-week thing. And I know I'd heard some schools, they stood it up in 3 weeks. And there's certain things you're just like, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, especially all the content we had and trying to move things over. But once we got into it, Emily was our implementation partner, and walking us through the tool and keeping us on task, and really working through questions and never saying, and if it needed to be escalated, it could be, and so allowing that time, and really she helped us shape, like, keep the team small right now. I know you might have a lot of people that want to jump in, but really keep it small so you can kind of control that flow. But like I said, we really one person on the website, one on the technical side, and then the others are kind of the content and review and that sort of thing, the communications. So really the lift has been, now we have had to prioritize some of the things because we only have one really web guy that can do amazing things. And so we really had to, be cognizant of his time as well. What we've seen is just when we've kind of demoed it to other groups, they've been really pleased with how their particular area looks, and then the ability to change things on the fly, and that sort of thing. We kind of centralized a lot of that content, so we haven't delegated like you can, right? You can give permissions to each area to update their own content if you want to. So that's something we may be considering here as we move forward. Our communication marketing team, they've been real pleased with the announcements feature. The way you can send announcements by role, the way you can, the push notifications, you can email them if you need to, that sort of thing. So that's really going to help us. And again, like I was saying, that rapid development of from user requests to seeing them in production. I think we were on a call last week with our account manager and our web guy. He brought up something, and Cole mentioned, oh, by the way, that just got approved in Canny. So that's good to go. So being able to see that. So like I said, we started the true implementation, the training in December. So we've been working through with holidays and things like that, and people being out and spring break and that sort of thing. We're getting kind of the crunch time, but our web guy John, he said, I feel 95% we're good to go. So haven't met any like true red flags at this point. So pretty excited. So yeah, the implementation, like I said, what's laid out in the packet the welcome packet, it blocked it by week on what you could expect on the training side and on the technical side. And it was almost like a blueprint for our house. Like, day 90, we'll be installing tile. And that's pretty much what they were doing. So yeah, real pleased with that, how the communication was between the sales side, the account management side, and the implementation side. Yep.
Sounds awful. Just kidding. Susan, how about you? What was the implementation process like for your?
We've been live about a year, and it went very smoothly. We had, the tasks that we needed to complete were built out, and the support was there for us. So anytime we got stuck on something or we needed more information, we'd just ask and it would arrive very quickly. So it went well. It's a change. It was a big change for staff, really. I think they struggled with it a little bit more because it was so different and they were so used to the old system. But we made it through, and they're on board with it now. They don't even think about the old system anymore.
Absolutely. Change is scary, right? But sometimes change, pushing through that little bit of discomfort can lead you to sunshine and rainbows on the other side sometimes. Brian, how about you? Implementation process.
Our implementation process was fairly painless. Also, there really isn't much room for error. With the way that the Pathify team lays it out and kind of step by step. So that was not difficult for us to follow and kind of step through. And as I mentioned, since we were able to have that other portal up at the same time, being able to run them dual and show a demo, have people go to the old portal and see a banner that says "New Look Coming," and it kind of shows like the page curl, like this is what it might look like. Click it, and them to kind of get their hands in while the other one was still up. So if they couldn't find something, it wasn't like the day was over. They had, call help desk, let's complain. They can still get into the old system and find it, at least for that time, until they learned how to find it or locate it in the new system. So that definitely helped us out when it came to our implementation. We didn't have any showstoppers or things like that, that kind of stopped the system or stopped the show, because we were able to provide them with the ability to kind of help them along the way. And Pathify helped us out with that a big way too. So, it worked out well for us in a situation when we had to do it.
Awesome. So based on your experiences, what advice would you offer institutions that are considering a similar path of replacing their student portal? Let's touch on that. And I want to make sure we have time for Q&A at the end too, because we've got an excellent question here. But Brian, let's start with you on what advice
I'll be quick. The biggest advice I can give is that, first of all, just make sure it covers everything that you currently have that you're offering your faculty, staff, and students. And the second thing is basically ask the students and groups what they're looking for. Once they get started and once you get started going, people start using the portal, you'll find the other users will organically come. When people find out they can put documents, then people will find out, I can assign documents to just to one person, to one group. Or once they figure out they can do that, it's a trickle effect. So once you get started and you kind of start using the portal and you get folks in there with the features that are there that they're used to, they'll start to see the potential and it'll grow organically. You really won't have to do much once you put it in their hands.
I love that. Susan, how about you? What advice would you give?
There are a lot of features, so a phased approach and prioritization is really important. So for us, we focused on the replacement first, and then, continue to do research on the other features, but just made sure our focus stayed on that priority build.
Awesome. And Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, I think our always is communicate, communicate, communicate. No matter how much you plan for it, you often underestimate that. So the awareness and engaging all the stakeholders and so forth, and then be prepared, especially on our end from our own experience. Because we'd had this portal up for forever, and some of the people that we brought in for these focus groups, they didn't even know what the content was on their end that maybe a student saw. So now they're ready to, we need to change that. We need to update that. So now we're having to carve out some time to do that. Instead of just moving the boxes, we're having to like repaint things and fix them as we put them in the new house. So we want to make sure about that. And we know, kind of Susan touched on that, the governance of this that we didn't have in place for our content. So that'll help as well. So we know moving forward to be prepared for that and that executive leadership buy-in for sure.
Awesome. So good. One last question before we shift to Q&A, which I see another question in there, which we'll add to the list. What's next for your institution when you're thinking about your portal and how you are currently using or will be using Pathify? Susan, let's touch with you first.
I would say that we're using Pages more than we ever thought we would. So, and people are making requests for things. Well, I think, Brian, you said that it just sort of happens. And when people see the functionality, that they start requesting things that they would like to be available, groups and Pages are really primary ones for us. But page requests have gone up recently. And so we're still looking at other features. Honestly, we've only been active for a year. So there are some things that we can still implement and that we are looking at, probably the directory. So would be the next on our list.
Awesome. Brian, what's next for you?
Well, when we came out, we just went with the core setup. So we still have quite a few widgets and things that we would like to explore and kind of experiment, turn on, and get in the hands of our students. So we have about 8 or 9 widgets right now that we're looking at, that we've been testing out in our test instance and kind of playing with, and we're planning on connecting. But we're also in the process of doing some updates to other systems. We're in the process of going to Banner 9 and going cloud. So, before we make all these connections and do those things too, we're kind of making sure everything else is taken care of. Since when we did come to the portal, like I mentioned, we didn't have a whole lot of time to do all that beforehand. We were rushed into the situation. So now we're taking it slower and connecting things. And as Susan mentioned, doing some research on what we might want to turn on and give access to. But it's been a process. But we're looking forward to it now that we're here and we know how easy it is to kind of get these integrations going. We are definitely looking forward to kind of getting the most usage and turning on as many things as possible to help our students.
Awesome. And Patrick, what's next for you? You don't have anything coming up, do you?
Well, our big thing is like in project management, right? We're kind of protecting the triangle of the scope and the time and the money and so forth. And so protecting that scope has been critical at this point, but it's very difficult because people are just chomping at the bit. They've seen the other modules, they see the other capabilities that Pathify can do, and maybe, like we said, can kind of we're replacing it with our mobile app with that, possibility with groups, with the digital ID, the tasks, and surfacing a lot of that information into the widgets, the integrations that we still are eager to dive into, but we're trying to get through this cycle. We're like, let's move in the house first, make sure everybody knows where the light switches are, those work, and the doors work, and then we can put in the pool. Right, but people want the pool. They want they really want that, some of that stuff that really adds value, and so that's going to be what we need to do. So trying to protect that scope and just managing expectations along the way. But like I said, what we've experienced now, and what's coming, and what we see now, trying to stay up with how Pathify is developing and all the partnerships they're doing with other companies as well. So we're excited about that.
Love it. Love it. Let's shift to some Q&A here. We're excited. We've got a really great question here in the chat. From a technology perspective, what drew you to Pathify over the other portals that you evaluated? For example, are the administrative and integration tools better than other products? Was it the UI or UX that drew you to them? I know it's a small piece of the pie in the decision to select a portal, but as a programmer at my institution, I'm interested if there was a certain draw. And then a follow up question to that is, was Ellucian Experience an option for your school since you are all Ellucian clients? Susan, let's start with you, and then we'll do Brian and then Patrick.
Yes, solution experience was an option for us. Sorry, the other question was about programming resources. That was one of the reasons why we went with Pathify, is that the build could be handled by non-programmers. And so that helped free up some resources. Now, that's not to say that there are things that a programmer would not be used for. So your widgets and integrations, of course, and bringing in your users and all of that. So you still need your programmers, but the lift wasn't as heavy, and the features. Really, the search feature was one of the biggest things for us, just to make it easy. And it looks really pretty too. So
Love it.
having it is a big deal. So
Absolutely agreed. Brian, how about you? Let me know.
I'll take more of the designer UI UX aspect of the question, since I do have a background in that, coming from that. It definitely made things a lot easier for us to decide, coming from what we were coming from. And I know that all of they generally, it's a menu, there's some links and type things, the portals, but the cleanness of how it's laid out on the screen, it favors a lot of social media sites, which obviously students are, on all the time and very familiar with. So it's very easy to access. It's not intimidating. The menus are clean. And the fact that you can control a lot of the aspects now, since we've been on, there've been a lot more features and things built in, a lot more options and customizations that have been added. That's one thing I will give Pathify: those weekly or monthly updates where you release new features, they are on point. They never disappoint. So there have been tons of features that have been added since we came on board that that it's a task just to stay up with. So you really have to be involved if you're going to stay on top of every single release and update and feature that's available. But the customization element of it, when it comes to getting the portal to look how you want, and how it appeal to your student body or faculty, staff, your community, that helps a lot, because you can do what you want, you can make it look how you want, and you can appeal to the folks in the way that you need to, in order to get that engagement that you're looking for. And it doesn't have to be something that every time you look at, you just say, yes, yeah. So.
Awesome. And for you, was Ellucian Experience an option for you since for your school, since you were a Ellucian client as well?
You know what? I don't want to misspeak, and I'm not really sure if at the time it was back then, because this was, like I said, this was about 4 years ago, and we actually were looking in 2018 is when I kind of first started looking. So I'm not really sure if back then that was an option. If so, I wasn't, part of that.
I was going to say, I was trying to do the math in my head too of that. So I thank you for reaffirming me and not knowing that.
That's not a problem.
How about you, Patrick?
Yeah. So the Ellucian Experience is definitely, we're Ellucian School, has been that way for 20 years now, and so they're a great partner. Looking at what they had, and even I think there is a place for Ellucian Experience within this ecosystem. So from accessing some of the student information and creating dashboards over there and faculty, staff, that sort of thing, more of the, but not more of the, from an engagement perspective, not more of a connection and things like that. So that's what kind of set us apart with that. So not to say we might not be an experience in some capacity moving forward, but I will say from the UI, just from what I've heard from our team, it's fairly intuitive. From the base level, there is a component. So Pathify has the middleware, Flow middleware, that you can use to develop some of your own widgets and your own integrations and things like that. So haven't heard about that. We're not involved in that at this point, so I'm not sure as far as how that works. But yeah, that's really what stood apart. Some of the other vendors that we looked at, they had some features that were like, yeah, we might want to stand behind that. But I know what Susan said, but the prettiness of it, the coolness of it, I just think that there's something that you can't put a category in that you're like, you guys get it. I think from Pathify, from once, from when Chase and Jim, when they started the whole idea and what they wanted to do, and now, like Brian said, with the development and the different releases and seeing the roadmap of what's coming as well. So, yeah, just sets you almost. And we were talking to Bayless originally, like, is this something that there could be a sole source letter? And I think some schools have been able to get a sole source, so they don't have to go through RFP. We weren't able to do that, so we did the RFP. But Pathify, like I said, we had 25 people on our committee, and it was a unanimous decision.
Awesome. I loved hearing that. Thank you for sharing on that. And that is something that is interesting. I think a lot of folks, we hear, experience or Pathify, and I'm so glad you called that out, Patrick, that they can work together, right? That's definitely an option there as well. So thank you for saying that. We have another question, kind of boiling it down. Do any of you have banner integrations set up is essentially the question that we have kind of here. Let's start Susan and then Brian, then Patrick, same order there.
We are colleague.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And then Brian, how about you?
No, not currently. Not currently.
No,
same here. Not currently. It's on our roadmap. We want to work through that. We have kind of dabbled in it a little bit to see, what that might look like, but we have not studied anything up. Yep.
Absolutely. Awesome. Any other questions? Let me check the chat real quick and make sure. Perfect. Awesome. Some common questions, because we have just a couple more minutes left. Some common questions that we get. How did Pathify integrate into your existing systems, and were there any complications involved? That's another good thing to chat on. Patrick, let's start with you.
What was the question again?
How did Pathify integrate into your existing systems, and were there any complications involved?
At this point, we have the single sign-on. We have, the ability to do. We're doing like just links into Banner, into those systems, and other single sign-on type things. So at this point, we have had some issues with the Blackboard integration, something on the grading scheme and things like that, how things appear. So that's why we weren't going live with it yet. So we're still trying to tweak some of those things, but from a support side, if we have those issues, Pathify has kind of walked with us, escalated if needed, and trying to work with us, not just saying, oh, everybody else, we've been successful here, so it's something on your end. So there has been a true partnership in trying to work some of those things out. But that's why we haven't yet kind of put those up for people to use.
Perfect. And how about you, Brian?
Well, the integrations are no problem. We haven't encountered any issues or any big holdups. Like I said, we haven't turned on a whole lot of our integrations just yet. We're working through those, but we do plan on it. I will say that once we do get connected, I think the biggest goal that we're trying to do is we're trying to just increase engagement. I think that's what everybody was trying. You want people to use the system, especially because there's so much good information for them to get out of the system, whether it's their personal information or just university information. We've integrated our calendars and events so that way, we have a system that students use for like the SGA uses to keep track of all their events. They can schedule them. Well, we pull those events into the portal, so students don't have to go to that application. If they can, they don't have to go to that website. All that information is pulled in, all the events and stuff from our sports website. We integrate everything right into the portal, so when they log in, they can see all of those events. If they want to go to a game later on this evening, if they want to check out something that's being thrown by the SGA, it's all combined into that one integrated events list. So that was one of the big things that, like, as you can see, that it didn't start that way. But the integrations grow, the features grow, and in time, it'll expand, because the more that happens, we start to get departments who say, oh, can we add our events to the event calendar? And then the events calendar becomes a full-blown university calendar where every department is doing it. So we're excited to kind of go that route. We're just starting off with some of those features like events and giving access to everybody in the major master calendar. But, we're working there, and we're excited to walk down that way. and including as many integrations as possible that we can kind of get working in a good way.
Susan, we'll quickly touch on you and then we'll
Okay,
wrap.
sure. D2L, Outlook, Gmail, integrated for the last year, and no real issues. So that answers your question.
Perfect. Awesome. So one thing I want to put as a resource, our incredible panelists were so kind and generous, and they said, hey, if anyone has any questions, we would be willing to answer those things, those one-on-one, right? Raw, unfiltered. So they offered to have their information out here. So if you'd like to reach out to them, we can also put you in contact with them. But thank you, Susan. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. We are so grateful to our incredible partners that are willing to come and hear and spread the good news of great joy that is Pathify, right? And thank you for your honest feedback. I think that's important. So thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, I know Hannah just put a link in the chat for integrations on that. That we had a couple questions around that, but I hope you all have a wonderful day, and please don't be shy, and we will see you again soon.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Hannah.